Hey, how's it going? And today I'm updating the tutorial I did over a year ago. At the time I did that tutorial, there wasn't any tutorial I could find that explained how to save user data in an array. And so I just kind of winged it and figured it out the best I could on my own. And so after time's gone by, of course, I've seen some things that I could have improved in that process. So I'm redoing the tutorial. I'm mostly redoing the front end of it. The back end of it still is correct. Things I didn't like that I did is I was casting to the blueprint first person, and I did that I think twice, and I didn't need to do that. I still rely heavily on event dispatching. I think that's a good way to do it. And those are most of the changes that I made. And in the meantime, my workflow is maybe a little smoother. What's really different is I'm not in the blueprint character at all. I created a separate blueprint for this, and that way it's more memory efficient. So if you'd watched that tutorial before, once you save out game data, it stores in this file here in the saved games in your project. And this here is user data. And so because I've already tested the file, if I were to load my saved data, it's going to be from an old project. So I'm going to delete this file. So I'm just showing you where it's stored in your project. It's under saved. This is the project name, saving user. The folder name is saved, save games, and then this file, I just called it file one, and I'm going to delete this so that there's no saved data in the project now. Okay, so I have no saved data in the project. Now, if I hit play, and this is very similar to what we did before, here I have an input field. So I could type in something like Blade Runner, and then I fixed also the input field, so I didn't like that. So here I go, that it clears out now. So I could type in Dune 1, and I could type Dune 2, and I can type in Twister, and let's see what else. Predator, and I don't know, one more, Ghostbusters or something. Okay, so you see all that information is printing out, right? Now, if I go print, I'm recalling the information that was all stored in an array now. All those strings are stored in an array. Now, if I go save, all that data is now saved into an array. And if I quit the game, normally that data would be gone, but it's been stored. So what I do is I hit play again, and I hit load, and now I go print, you'll see the data comes back. So what we basically have now is a way to take user data and put it into an array, save it, and then reload it in another session of the game. So this has, of course, a lot of applications. So this is just a kind of a primitive workflow, but I'll be back and we'll walk through this. Okay, I'm back and we're ready to get started on this. The first thing we're going to do is create our user interface, our widget blueprint. So I'm going to right click, go to user interface, widget blueprint. We'll go user widget. And this is just a straightforward interface. There's nothing fancy about this. I'm just trying to show you the concept. The first thing is I'll just get the canvas panel and drag this onto the scene. And we'll just drag this out to 1920 by 1080 like that. And then we're going to need a text box, and that's right here. And this is confusing because when it drags in, it's called an editable text box, but it's really a text box. And then we'll just go ahead and drag this out here so we have some user input place. Here what I do, and you can play around with this, is on the background, we drop the opacity a little bit. And then for the foreground text style, I think it is, I just go inherit, so it'll be this color here. And then we just need 3 buttons. So I'm just going to come up here and search for a button and drag this down here on the canvas panel. And then I need a text button. So we'll drag that on the button. Here we're going to size to content. Then we're going to close this up. And we just need 3 buttons. So I'm going to hit Control D, The first button, just for clarity, we'll call it load, save, and the next button we'll call it print. I don't know why it looks like that. Okay, so what we do is we just create 3 buttons and we call them load, save, and print. And then on each text button we'll give it a name, the same name. So here we're going to call this load, and then we'll call this save, and then we'll call this one, and we'll just close these up. That. Now sometimes it's hard to reposition these, so if I close, it's hard to grab it, so we'll just come over here on the first button on position Y and just drag it down like that using these controls. It's usually a lot faster to do it that way. And then I'll click on the second one. I have a hard time grabbing these buttons otherwise. There's only one button left, so I can just probably grab it. But see, I always have a problem grabbing it. And there's our 3 buttons. Okay, and we're good to go. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get 4 event dispatchers. Sometimes it's hidden under here, but it's actually not here. It's going to be over here. We need 4 event dispatchers. So I'm just going to click one here, and I'm going to call this one send data. Another one is going to be called load. I guess I have to call it load data. We'll call this save data. And the last one here is print data. I guess it doesn't like the names being the same. Oh, I need to compile and save, of course. So if we come back on the designer view, we click on the load button and we come down here. There's an option for on clicked. So we click that, and I'll just do these all at the same time. And then we'll go to the save button and come down here to on clicked. And then we'll come down to print data and do the same thing on the designer, print, and go on clicked. On this one for send data, we'll go back into the graph here, and then all we do is on our event dispatchers is drag this off and go call. This part is pretty straightforward, to be honest. And then save, call, and then load, call. So this is going to be our method of communication. Now the one thing that's important that I forgot is that on the send data array we're going to add a input, because this is the one we're going to use to actually send our data, so we do want an input here. And I'm just going to call this string value, and we'll come here and set that to a string, and it's just a single. It's not an array. It's an element in an array, but it's not an array. So that's going to be on our send data. So back in our designer view, if I click the editable text box and I come down here, we're going to go on text committed. So this is what it should look like. You should have a button for load, save, and print, and then we have on text committed, and this is going to be for our send data. For some reason this sends out a pulse twice, and we only wanted to send it out once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for do once, like that, and then we're going to get our send data array. We're going to make our call. So we'll go call, and you'll see here there's our text can plug straight in here, and it does an auto convert node for us. And then we just plug in the exec pin here and the exec pin here. And now we just want to set the text on our editable text box, so we drag this over here, editable text box, pull this up, set text. Right here, it's on the bottom. And I don't know why we have to put a delay on there, but it only works with the delay. So we'll go delay. And it could be a short one, but let's just put it in for a second. And this goes in here like that. And then all we have to do is reset this. So this just goes back into reset over here. And then this node is a mess, so let me just reroute it. Whoops. And that's the whole functionality for our send. And then we can just compile and save, and then we're done with our user interface. I'm going to go ahead and now create the save game. So for that one, this is really easy. We're just going to right click, we're going to go to blueprint class, we'll come down here to all classes, and we'll go to save game, this one right here. and select, and I'm just going to call it save it. We'll double click into this, and all we have to do is create an array to store our data. So here I'm just going to click over here under variables, and I'm going to call this my stored array. I'm going to come over here to string, and then we're going to make that an array. And all we have to do is compile and save that. And this is the easiest blueprint. So we're done there. So we have our user widget, we have our save game. And the next thing, and this is the most involved, the kind of the innovation and what's different from the older tutorial, is that we're not going to put any of this in the first or third person template. What we're going to do is put it in its own separate blueprint. And this way it's lightweight, and you can call this whatever you want, but I'm just going to call this BP Manager. And so I'm going to come up here to Blueprint Class. It's an actor class, and I'll just call it BP underscore Manager. And like I said, you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to just drag that into the scene. It can be anywhere. And over here on its user input, we just want to set it to player 0. We'll go ahead and save that, or let's just go ahead and save all. Everything else we have to do is just inside of here. It does get a little like some pasta here a little bit, so we just need to go into the event graph, and I'll get rid of these nodes here. I don't think we need this details panel, so I'm just going to go ahead and close it so we have more space. And let me just scoot this over a little bit, and let's go ahead and make this happen. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create our widget. So we'll go create widget, and you could actually put this in other places too, but I'm just putting it in here. But this could go in the level blueprint if you wanted. We're going to go ahead and pair it to our new widget blueprint. Then we're going to go ahead and promote this to a variable. And the only reason we're doing this is so that we don't have to be dragging wires all over the place. Otherwise, I would have to be pulling just from here all the time, and it gets to be a little much. Okay, now we can go ahead and add to the viewport. So we go add to viewport, and of course, even the tribesmen of the Amazon know that to do this is different from the way I did it before. So what we're going to do now is we're going to search for our event dispatchers. We can only get them through a reference. So what I'm going to do is pull off of here, and we're going to search for assign. And I like doing assign. I used to search for bind, but now I just do assign because it comes in with a custom event already bound. So it saves a lot of time. It really does. So here we're going to search for the send data one. It's right here. One thing we're going to have to do is actually create an array in here. So there's two arrays, one for our data in game and then one that's stored. So we're like having to get it out of storage. So this is a second array, but it's all holding the same data. So we're going to click this, and we're going to call this my array. And this is going to be a string. And it's of course an array. So we go array and make it public. What we do is we just get this here, drag this on here, go get it, drag off of here, and we're going to go add unique. And then this string value just goes in here like that. I'm going to go for each loop here, and then this is also going from our array here. So we're going to cycle through our array. This is how we're going to, we could also set this up that we could go one element at a time, but we're just setting up with a for loop right now. I'm just printing it as a print string here. And we just wire this up like that. And that's that. So we're actually making pretty good progress. We just have to wire up all these event dispatchers. So I gotta just make sure I'm not missing a step here. It's easy to miss a step because there is a lot of little things hooked up here. It's confusing because each one of these events has its own exec pin that's doing kind of almost like a branch of what it's doing. But then we have our main flow here, so it's a little confusing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our print function, call to our print function. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just pull off of here and go bind, assign to our print here. And see how cool that is? It comes wired in already. And we're going to just go ahead and drag this into here. And again, this starts getting a little messy. I'll do my best to pull this out like that. Okay, and for this, we're going to go through a for loop on our array. So we just grab our array, and then here we're just going to go for, well, it's right here, so let me just control D, and we're just going to pop this in here, and this in here, and we can go ahead and print a string. So let me control D this, and this just pops in here, and that goes in there like that. Now we just have two more to do. Thank goodness. We've got our load and our save, and those are really kind of the brothers and sisters in a way, because they're both working with our saved data. So I'm going to do, off of this string, I'm going to kind of pull, let's see, did I do this right? Oh, I made one little mistake here. And that's why I say it's easy to make a mistake. These are driven off of this pin here. Sorry about that. And then let's Alt and disconnect this one. I forget, we got two separate. It's confusing because you get all these things going on here. So on this one, I'm going to just kind of pull off far, but let's go ahead and get our widget reference now. So I get one here and one here. And this way I don't have to pull the wire a million miles. So off of this one, we're going to get our save and load here. So let me zoom in here a little bit. And if I drag off of here, I'm going to go assign save. And here we're going to go assign load. And then what we can do is I kind of call this like a home run. So like I said, you can set this up any way that makes more sense to you as far as the nodes go. I'm just going to drag this into here and this into here. And then what we do is the last part are off these two custom event nodes here. This is the last part. This is the end of the line here. So remember, we're pulling this one off of this one, the bind, to print, and then we're going into bind to the save and bind to the load. And then we just have to finish up these two branches here. So we're going to go ahead and do save first, and this actually follows the other tutorial pretty closely. So this isn't really new, this part isn't really new. Right click and create save object, and this plugs in here. And our class is going to be our save it right there. So this is where we're actually going to loop through our user inputted data and save it to my stored array. So there's a lot of duplication of data as it's going from one array to the other array. For each loop right here. And again, this can get confusing, so we get my array here, and this goes in here. And the exec pin carries on from here. So this will give us a reference to our saved stored data. We want to get set the array. So we'll search for set my stored array right here. All these wires. And then bring that down. And then this is going to come into here. And this goes into here like that. Save game slot, and it's important that you keep the name the same for your slot. For the save game, that actually is going to come off of here, goes in here like that. Let me double click here. I'll bring that up like that. And this, you can call it anything you want. Why don't I just call it slot 1? Okay. And then we can print a string just to confirm that things are working. So print string. You don't have to have these print strings on here, but array saved. Yeah, so none of these print strings you're seeing have to be on here, but until you confirm that it's working, it's probably good to have them. So now this is going to be the load the game. So here we can go load game from slot, and that's why the slot name is so important. So we go slot 1, it has to be named exactly, and this exec pin just goes in there like that. And here we're casting to our save it blueprint, but it's not taking up much space, so it's okay to cast. So we'll go cast to save it right here. And that's why I say casting gets a bad rap sometimes, but it all depends on what you're casting to. So I said in another tutorial that casting to a whale is one thing, but casting to a sardine is something else. So anyway, we've got all that, and we just have a couple more nodes to do here. So with this reference in place, what I can do is just go ahead and pull off, and we're going to get my stored array. So I'm going to pull off of here and get my stored array right here for each loop, and this simply goes in here. Whoops. This goes in here, and this goes in here like that. Drag off of here and go set my array, yeah, this one. Again, another place of confusion, because what we're doing is we're setting, here's where we're actually loading from our stored array to our array that's over here, right? And so this goes in here like that. And then the last thing, if you want to print a string, we can print a string. Print string. I sure hope this works. I always get nervous when I make tutorials this long, and I just wonder at the end if it's all going to work. Or am I going to have to do the walk of shame and go back and try to figure out what I did wrong? So array loaded, but I'm doing this in real time. So as far as I know, it's all wired up. Everything's good to go. Just check your slot names, slot 1, slot 1. Make sure your custom pins are lined up. Make sure our event flow is following, because we have 4 binds that we're going through. You see that? 4 binds. So make sure those are all wired up. It's very easy to miss a step. Okay, and as far as I know, we're done. So let's hit play and see if it works. And here's our input field here. And let's see. Oh, I didn't put in any enter text, but you can do that on your own. So let's just type in, I don't know, tutorial 1, enter, tutorial 2, binding, tutorial 3, assign. I'm just going to put a few in here. Thanks for watching. Okay, and what I can do now is I should be able to just hit print, and it prints. So this is just going through the array on our system, and now what I can do is save this. So now I've saved that data to my stored array, and it's going to be stored outside of the game. It's going to be stored as persistent data. Now if I stop the game and I come back in, I hit play, and I go load, it's going to load all that in, and I go print, and there's the data. So it's super cool, and it has a lot of function. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. I just wanted to update that tutorial because it really was driving me crazy that the way I set it up.